North Texas Republican Congressman Roger Williams and Chair of the Small Business Committee. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you, Jack. Good to be with you.
So, what were your main takeaways from President Trump's speech the other night?
Well, I thought it was a great speech. I thought what he did, he was positive. He outlined a vision. He gave hope to people. I know from a Main Street America standpoint, people wanted to hear tax cuts. They wanted to hear less regulations. They wanted to hear an energy policy, and the fact that America was back again, candidly. And I think his speech set a tone to the world that America is going to be the strongest military power in the world, socially, economically, spiritually in the world. And that strong America pleads for a great, better world, quite frankly.
I want to talk to you about the agenda, but first I wanted to get your reaction to Congressman Al Green, Democrat from Houston. He's up for a censure vote. What was
Yeah.
your reaction? What was the reaction in the room, in the chamber as that was going on?
Yeah. Well, my reaction was I thought to myself, what in the heck are you doing, Al? And he continued to do it. And of course, the sergeant at arms came and they escorted him out after the speaker said it was time, gave him every opportunity to sit down and quit waving that cane that he had. But I thought it was interesting that when he left, the Democrats just kept looking forward. They offered him no assistance, no olive branch or anything. He just left. So I thought it was out of he's out of touch. But frankly, I got to tell you, the other night during the speech, the Democrats failed to stand for anything. I mean, they couldn't even stand for DJ. They couldn't stand for Border Patrol heroes. They couldn't stand for young women that were American heroes and fighting for women's rights. They couldn't stand for anything, and I think it showed that their dislike, frankly, for President Trump goes very, very deep.
Do you intend to vote to censure Congressman Green?
Absolutely, I do. It's not the kind of action and that you want in the people's house.
I also want to ask you about one of the topics that was discussed. A lot of people are talking about it, and that's tariffs. As you know, Texas is the largest export state in the United States by far, and business owners have expressed concerns about potential lower profits, job cuts, higher prices. So, what do you say to them about the tariffs?
Well, I can talk about tariffs because, as you know, I'm in the automobile business, so I'm going to be affected by tariffs if they actually go in. I think the president has been using them as a wedge. We already see some uh, countries beginning to reduce their tariffs. I think we have to do something about this trade imbalance. There's no reason America should not be the leader, the builder of, rather than the buyer of. So, frankly, I'm not worried about tariffs. I'm not scared of tariffs, even though I'm in the automobile business. I think what you could see, if you could see the cost of goods sold rise a little bit, but we're going to couple that too with tax cuts and regulation cuts. People have a little bit more money to spend on what they want to spend. But I think at the end of the day, you take small business owners that have inventories that are going to be affected. We'll find a way to sell our inventory. And the fact of the matter is, if tariffs raise a widget or a truck or something a little higher than what the customer can afford, we will discount those prices. And quite frankly, a customer might be able to buy a product for less with the tariffs than he could before the tariffs.
How so?
Well, because businesses will discount their product to sell it, to get it off the shelf.
So you're talking about dealers such as yourself
No,
offering incentives, or are you talking about the manufacturers lowering interest
no,
rates?
I'm just talking about free market and capitalism working. Now, if the manufacturers in the auto business want to do something, they do something all the time. But I'm talking about free markets and competition, and not just the automobile business. It's every business. People sometimes discount their product to get it off the shelf, to get cash, to get something new they can sell quicker. That could be a spinoff of tariffs. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of these countries are going to come back around. Why not have countries build their product and hire American workers here? And that's what we're after. I mean, we got the greatest opportunity, the greatest workers in the world.
Do you see the automotive manufacturers building more plants in the United States? Because there are a lot of car plants in Mexico and Canada.
Well, there are, and I think too, I think we will see more plants. I know that some of the manufacturers are already talking about expanding and rehabilitating and building new plants, and that would be great. And so I just don't think we need to have the difference in the trade imbalance, and this is a way to begin to talk about it and get people to understand that the greatest place to do business is right here in America.
You mentioned the tax cuts before. The Trump tax cuts from 2017 are set to expire this year. And Democrats have said that this would basically help billionaires at the expense of working class people. What's your reaction to that?
I don't know what they mean. I mean, tax cuts are for everybody, and the tax cuts work, and we're going to make them permanent. I ran on tax cuts all the way back in 2012. We ran on in 2016. I run on them every year because tax cuts put more money in the hands of businesses. It lets you hire more people, create more workforce, create more opportunity, create more taxpayers. So it's important that we get the tax cuts made permanent before the end of this year, and I think you'll see it by the second quarter that we will have voted to make them permanent. But it's important because that's what people want. People want to see more money take home than the federal government. And when you see what the federal government, the waste of the money we see, it even more empowers workers to say, hey, let me have the money rather than the federal government. I can do with it much greater and much better than the federal government. And the other thing is, Jack, we got to make sure that 100% expensing gets in the tax codes because this is huge. This allows small businesses and people to buy fixed assets that they can write off at the time they buy it rather than scheduling depreciation. So that's a big point too. So tax cuts, 100% expensing, and that turns America on. I can tell you, as chairman of the Main Street committee, a small business committee up here in Congress, and being a Main Street person myself, that's what Main Street wants to hear. Main Street wants to be able to take risk and get reward and compete against their competitor, not have to compete against the federal government.
As far as the cuts by Doge, President Trump said that he favors a balanced budget amendment. But Republicans have talked about that for years, but we haven't seen that. So, I mean, how realistic is that? Because at the end of the day, it's Congress that's going to have to make these cuts, and that's easier said than done.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, president wants a balanced budget. We all do. I mean, states balance their books, don't they? You and I balance our books. My business, we balance our books. But eventually, we need to get to where a balanced budget amendment, I would be for that. But in the interim, we've got to find a way to increase our cash flow. You do that through tax cuts. You can create more cash, you create more taxpayers. And at some point in time, we got to start looking at expenses because we got the greatest amount of cash flow going through our country right now we've ever had, but we're spending more. And eventually you're going to have to look at all your expenses, all your fixed expenses, and see what can possibly be adjusted to begin to create the difference between your cash flow and the money you're spending.
Two other questions. As far as budget cuts, Democrats, and you saw the signs the other night during the president's speech, are very concerned about Medicaid. Republicans are considering $880 billion in cuts over a 10-year period to the program for the health for the poor. And I'm wondering, what's your takeaway on that? Is that something you would support?
Well, the president said don't get into Medicare and Medicaid, I'm not there yet. I want to make sure tax cuts happen. I think tax cuts is the bell cow what we've all run on. We got to get more money into people's hands and small business hands. So I want to focus on my tax cuts. I don't want to focus on the border and tighten the border up so we can save our sovereignty and stop the invasion of illegals down there and have them come through the ports of entry rather than between. That's what I'm focused on right now.
Do you support Governor Abbott's request for Congress to reimburse Texas the $11 billion that the state has spent during the Biden administration to
Yeah.
secure the border? And do you see this actually happening?
Well, first of all, that's my bill. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but Governor Abbott talked to me about it. That's the number he and I came up with, and that's my bill, and we filed the bill, and I think it should pass. I mean, Texans stepped up, the governor stepped up when spent over $11 billion when that's money the government should have spent. I mean, Joe Biden went to sleep on the border, and so Texans stepped up. So I filed the bill last week and for $11.1 billion reimbursement to Texas. It's the people's money. It's Texas money.
All right. North Texas Congressman Roger Williams, and Chair of the Small Business Committee. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay, Jack, thank you.